back, everyone. Today we are going to be going over the intermediate steps to having a stress-free college experience. If you haven't seen the beginner video, go back and watch that one, and these steps will all build off of those. If you apply the things in the beginner video, you're going to be set up pretty well for college. The idea behind this video is become more efficient. Because if you watch the first video, you're going to do things like use your weekends, have a calendar, and here we're going to really hone in on the way that your semester operates. Step number one to the intermediate college student is stay a week ahead. I talked about being 3 days ahead in the other beginner level video. Now I want you to be a week ahead. Be working on things and be keeping your eyes on the whole week. Don't just wait till the day before or 3 days before. Get an idea of what's going to be going on that whole week, and then major projects, obviously, you'd want to be more than a week out on those. Step two, use artificial deadlines. If you have something due on Monday, tell yourself, for me, it's due on Friday, the Friday before. Then you're going to be able to use that deadline to get something done and then give yourself some more breathing room. If you haven't had any breathing room in a college semester, it's pretty nice. And it also helps you have more creative thoughts throughout the day whenever you're not necessarily pressed by a deadline constantly. And most students probably don't really get to this point. I didn't know that many who had a lot of breathing room in college, but if you set your own artificial deadlines, you'll be able to not stress as much throughout the week. Number three, use your weekends strategically. And really, I talked in the last video about just using your weekends a little bit. Now, I would like for you to put a chunk of time, either Saturday or Sunday or Friday night, but you're probably going to be doing things with your friends Friday night. Have a chunk of time in the morning or in the afternoon. So not just doing a little bit of work, but really set aside part of your day, either on Saturday or Sunday. And when you do this, like I said before, you're going to be less stressed. You'll be able to get more done, and you'll be able to know what kind of tasks that you want to do on the weekend. Because, some things like doing all those little assignments a week out, if you haven't done that before, that makes a huge difference. And then if you have 4 hours on Saturday that you're going to be working, you're not going to be worried about the little things. You're going to be able to be looking at the bigger picture throughout the semester. Number four, study in intervals. If you've watched any of the other videos on this channel, I'm a huge fan of the Pomodoro method. This is a 25-minute study cycle method, and the name Pomodoro came from a tomato. The guy that made it up, I forgot the story, but it had to do with a tomato he was looking at when he was studying. But there's research that shows that your brain focuses the best for 25 minutes at a time. There's a reason why there's not a lot of classes that go 2 and 3 hours, because your brain needs a break. Well, when you use the Pomodoro method, the way that your time works in your studying is you have more beginnings and ends to what you're studying. Now follow me. If you study one thing for 2 hours and you didn't take a break, you have one start and one conclusion. But even the way that we write in sentences, the most effective place to put information is the beginning or the end of the sentence. That's because that's the way we think as humans. Same with your studying. If you are studying or if you sit down and read a book for 20 minutes, you're most likely to remember the things at the beginning and the end of whenever you are reading. When you're studying, your brain is the same way. So if you can create more stops and starts in your studying time, you're going to be able to remember more of the information. That's kind of the background behind the Pomodoro method. I personally study 20 minutes at a time. I think 25 is good, but I like being able to switch a little more than like a 25-minute session would permit me to. That's just me. But use the Pomodoro method. It basically is a method where you study for 25 minutes and then you take a 5-minute break. You do that twice. Follow that cycle twice, and then you take a 15-minute break the third time. So I don't necessarily follow that specifically, but I did whenever I first started studying with that methodology, and now I've tweaked it. But you want to study in time intervals, and that's really helpful because you can say, okay, this week I want to have 10 Pomodoro sessions for this exam. Now you're working towards a goal, and it will make your studying so much more fruitful if you have not just I want to know this concept, but also I have this much time. So once you have the basics, then learn something a little more advanced. Spend your last few study sessions reading if you feel like you've mastered the content. It'll make you a better student. Number 5, improve sleep. There's another video on this channel you can go to where I discuss sleep, and you want to have a dark bedroom. You want to wake up and sleep at the same time as best you can. Even on the weekends, sleep experts will say, but I think that's a lot, to do, is to have the same bedtime on the weekend as during the week. But make sure you get enough sleep, have a consistent bedtime. Don't have caffeine within 6 to 8 hours of when you go to sleep. Make sure you exercise, and don't work in your bedroom if that's also where you sleep. Obviously, you sleep in your bedroom. So don't work in your bed when you're doing homework, because your brain has a habit loop there of going to sleep in that location. Don't work in bed. If you improve your sleep, this is a very important part of the intermediate student. And number 6 is use a system to study for your tests. Me personally, I study for usually 2 weeks out, sometimes more if it's like a final. I'll do 3 or 4 weeks out, and I just do 20 minutes a day. I know that sounds really simple, but it's worked for me. Do what works for you. This system allows you, for me personally, allows me to start thinking about concepts a little more in advance. And then whenever I sit down to study, my system is first study for the essay. If the teacher tells you, if they're merciful and they tell you what's going to be on the essay, study that information first. But if they don't tell you, then look for the big lists. If you have to know any lists for whatever you have to take a test on, you want to get those down first. And you can, like right now, I have my wallpaper screen has a bunch of dates, because one of the classes I'm in right now, I have to memorize all these dates and all these events that occurred in the U.S. education system. Well, I just made that my wallpaper, and because I started a lot of time in advance, I'm able to think about those dates, and then at random times try to remember, okay, what happened in 1908? Oh yeah, this happened. Or what happened in 1955? Oh yeah, that was the Phonics Wars that started then. And I'm able to do that because I started in advance, because I had my system. And then another tip is just make the big list your wallpaper on your phone. I know that sounds super small, but if it's out in the open, you're going to think about it more. Number 7, have a priority in your classes. Ask yourself, what is the class where the content would be hardest to learn after I'm finished with my degree? When I did this in my bachelor's degree, I realized my Greek and Hebrew classes were going to be the most difficult, because who's going to teach you that whenever you finish Bible school? Well, I mean, obviously you can get that training, but it's a skill-based class. It's not just content. It's not just what happened in Genesis and a lot of details. It's actually, can you work with the grammar and the syntax, and can you do these different skills that help you understand what the Bible passage means? And the Greek and Hebrew, in my mind, was going to be the hardest to learn after college. So, whenever I was going through the classes, that became the most important thing to me. I would sacrifice learning in other classes because this one is going to be the hardest to attain the information after I'm done with school. Set a list of priorities in your classes, like which one is the most important, which one's the least important. Other factors to that list can be, what is the thing you're going to use the most whenever you finish school, and what would your future employer, what would they want to see? How important is, whatever the topic is, you decide, but have a priority. That way, when you sit down, you know which test to study for first, if you have extra time, where that time should go. And because you're going to have a system and you're going to use a calendar, you will have extra time. Number 8, learn to say no. This is a life skill. Some people never learn how to say no, and it's easy to become overcommitted in life. And in general, it's better to do a few things well than a lot of things okay. And if you never learn how to say no, if you are constantly saying yes to everything that people ask you to do, you're not going to be able to follow your priorities the best to your ability. And if you learn how to say no now, whenever you're in college, you're going to be able to do it in the future as well. It's not this, you don't learn how to say no just to be a Debbie Downer, but at the end of the day, you want to be able to dictate what your priorities are, not other people's invitations or what they want you to do. And that's a big skill to learn, but if you learn it, you'll be really thankful. The intermediate student, you stay a week ahead, you do things like learn how to say no, you have a priority in your classes, and you study in intervals, and you always are looking at having artificial deadlines. Those are just a few of the concepts. Use these things in your college career and you will be a stress-free student. I'm also going to do a video on the advanced study techniques, but if you apply the things in the beginner and intermediate, you're going to have a stress-free college experience. So no more, I hate college and I'm not learning anything and I'm tired, I'm bored. Don't think that way. Choose the way that you spend your time. You manage your school, and you'll be glad you did, because later in life, you're going to use the skills in other areas. We'll see y'all in the advanced college study tips video.